So anyway, I remember I belonged to Blast. Well, it was Bally Health Club. Remember that? Chicago Health Club. Bally bought it out, and now Blast bought it out. And I was a member there since 2005. And what I liked to do on Thursday mornings, I'd do my workout, then I'd swim for 20 minutes. And upstairs they had a track, and they had big windows, and you could see the pool down there. It had 4 lanes. You could see who was swimming, so you'd walk around 6:20. You'd look and see if there's anybody in the pool. If there's not, you hurry downstairs, you get your swimming suit on and get in swim laps. If the pool is full, then you say, well, I can do a few more rounds of weightlifting or whatever. At one point, after Bally was bought out by Blast, something happened, and nobody really took care of the pool. So you look at the pool, and it's kind of a green tinge to it. Oh, yeah, so I don't really want to swim in a swamp, per se. So I didn't go lap swimming, and then it looked clear. And they said, you can't use this for a month and a half. I said, why? It's clear water. And they said, well, someone put too much chlorine in, so it was not good that way either. And so they had to get a right balance of pH and all these other factors in there. So that wasn't good. Also, remember when you're a kid, or maybe not, when you go to the beach, and this is pretty popular, you make sand, little holes, and then you fill it with water. You get a little stream and fill it with water, block it off, so you have a little pool of water. And then we know some kids catch some fish and put it in there and watch the fish swim around. How cool is that? How long do you think the fish will survive? I mean, the fish is safe, right? There's no predators going to eat them. So they're protected, well protected, but yet, why are they going to die? Well, maybe they use up all the oxygen in the water. They suffocate, in fish terms. The water sitting there, stagnant, is no good. The water in the pool is just no good to do anything with. When you're in the desert, you're so thirsty, you see a pool, but you got to make sure it's not stagnant water. You got to make sure there's springs refreshing it all the time. Jesus speaks to this woman about living water, and she literally says living water. Well, that's flowing, rushing water that's always replenishing itself. There's always oxygenation going on. There's no, overabundance of algae or bacteria or whatever it is that's going on. In a couple weeks, it's about a month, a friend of mine from Guatemala will speak about the water in Guatemala, because during Lent, I think the kids are going to learn about water, and they're going to raise funds for water around the world. And Guatemala is a place that we know that 80% of the water is not clean to drink, so they have to have different water purification systems. The living water that Jesus gives is different. He's speaking on a different level than what the woman is understanding. When I was a kid, I didn't understand. I understood it just the way she did. You won't have to drink again. This is great. I can keep playing. I don't have to do any more drinking water. It's all taken care of. You say, no, it's something that you have a deep need for, and I'm going to refresh it, fill it for you. This woman, you think about this woman, 5 husbands, and now she's living with some guy. What is that all about? Well, we don't know what this woman's situation was. The women weren't allowed to divorce. And back in those, there were different laws. If you burn your husband's toast, he could divorce you. Wow, really? For anything as minor as that. So we don't know what her situation was. She could have been a widow. Now she could be living with someone providing for her. She had some deep needs. Deep, deep needs that she needed to have filled. And Jesus just happened to be there. Think back last week of Nicodemus seeking Jesus out where Jesus was in the cover of darkness at night, wanting to find out who this Jesus was. Well, they had a conversation. Jesus talked to Nicodemus and told him about being born anew, being born again, and all those kinds of things. And now he happens to be in this place. The woman comes up in broad daylight, and they're having a conversation. Jesus is telling her about living water, that he is the one to provide living water. And she have no fear because the Messiah is among her, is with her. We think that living water is something that is unattainable at some times. That we think that we have it just fine the way we are, that there's no need, that we can be in our circle, in our fish tank per se, and we can be fine without anything new coming in. And that doesn't really lead to any growth much at all. Jesus' time, Jesus talked to Nicodemus, a man with rank, of status, but yet came at night. Jesus talks to this woman, no status, during the day, the light of day. We see that Jesus, throughout his ministry, he talks to Nicodemus the Pharisee. He's talking to this woman. He's talking to the lepers. He's talking to the outcasts. He's talking to everybody and anybody who will listen to him. Because that's the way Jesus was. His ministry was relationship building. He had no walls. He had no prejudices against anybody, whether they were Samaritan or Jew, whether they were male or female, whether they were children. It didn't matter to him. He would talk to anybody who would listen. And Jesus, as you notice in these stories, is not pounding him with a hammer and banging on the head with the ancient scrolls and say, you better get this straight, otherwise you're going to be damned to hell. Jesus simply talked to them and tried to enlighten them and for them to make their own decisions. Some of the disciples that were with him later on found out what was required of them, that the sacrifices they had to make, and they left. Jesus didn't handcuff them and make them become disciples because that's the way it is, otherwise, whatever. But Jesus talked to them, shared with them his story. And in this story, they were listening to him. He didn't necessarily do any wondrous signs or things for them to see, but he simply talked to them for 2 days. The Samaritans, they had no vested interest in this. They were separate from the Jews, yet they understood that there was a Messiah. They knew that much. And Jesus throws her another curveball and said, it's not going to be on this mountain where you worship. It's not going to be in Jerusalem where you worship. You'll find that you can worship anywhere you are. Anyone who is anyone can worship where you are. God is present everywhere. Not on this mountain necessarily, not simply in Jerusalem, but in your hearts, in the places that you are. Jesus talked to anybody and everybody who would listen. He created that space, that pond that was still and protected. He broke it out, let the water flow in and out so that there was life, there was refreshment everywhere. That the balance was right, that there was a place to be nourished and to grow and thrive. And the Samaritans took what Jesus said, took it in their hearts and believed. I think that's amazing that they were able to just listen to stories that he would tell and believe. Samaritans often get a bad rap, but here is something new. This woman who was at the well was probably the first missionary. She heard the story, and then she went, she told as many people as she could. And from her witness, some actually believed. Even more intriguing was that some were intrigued enough to follow her, to find where Jesus was, to listen, to need more. Because the need is so deep within that community, within this woman, that they needed to hear some words of comfort. The specific words I don't know. I wish I did. But it was a sense of the presence of God and a newness of their faith that was all-inclusive, that included not only the Jews, but also the Samaritans and whoever else would listen. And that's just the way that Jesus was. No walls. Talk to anybody and everybody without fear, without trepidation, without walls. Jesus came to the woman unexpectedly. You never know what you're going to meet, who you're going to meet, or what the outcome will be. And Jesus took advantage of the situation and made wonderful things happen simply by being there and telling a story. And God invites us into his heart, continues to invite us for the stories God has to tell to enrich our faith and give us new life, the living water that we so desperately need. Amen.